Well, you mentioned that not all the big names in the world of darts are here, and let's touch on that a bit. As there's no Jose de Sousa, who won the title 2 years ago, no James Wade, the world number 5, no Gary Anderson, no Dimitri Vandenberg this week in Wolverhampton. So who would you say missing out on the event hurts the most?
I'll probably say Jose de Sousa, the 2020 champion 2 years ago. He played superb all that week to win the title. What was it, the 158 checkout, which won our first ever checkout of the year award to win the title against James Wade, but he's missed out. And before this event, he was ranked number 6 in the world, I think, provisionally, when that title money drops off. And there's also, I think, 3 or 4 Pro Tours from this week 2 years ago that are going to drop off as well. You add the 4th place prize money in the groups to everyone, he's going to be down in around 16th place, and I think only £2,000-3,000 ahead of Ryan Serwin 17th. So that's a pretty big drop, isn't it, for someone who we've spoke about on the show recently. He's shown a few signs of coming back into some form. He had some deep runs on the Euro Tour, the quarterfinals of the World Match Play, and as I said on the show last week before the qualifier, we had the 4 semi-finalists from 2 years ago. Only Simon Whitlock had qualified and the other 3 hadn't, and that stayed the same way. James Wade won one of those Pro Tours on Saturday, but that wasn't enough for him to get in, and then he lost out in the qualifier on Sunday, and currently 5th in the world. Depending on how results go next week, we could see him drop 4 or 5 places. And the other one from that list of semi-finalists haven't made it there, Dimitri Vandenberg. You've probably got to feel a bit sorry for him, haven't you, considering that he did win 2 World Series events back-to-back, both on TV this year, and that wasn't enough. And okay, it's probably a bit of a grey area. Do you include those titles in the qualification criteria? You've already got the Premier League, the Masters. There are a smaller pool of players, the World Cup as well, I guess. He's not in the field, and he's top 16 place, like Jose, could be under threat next week. And lastly, the players that we've touched on, Gary Anderson, who decided to play Friday and Saturday in the Pro Tours, went home on Sunday. So a little bit surprising. Paul Nicholson himself said it in commentary. He was surprised that Gary wasn't staying an extra day to play in that qualifier on Sunday. And I was as well. But then you think, when was the last time you saw Gary Anderson enter a one-day qualifier like that? It's been a long time. So there's been a little bit of talk, I think, on social media. Is this a sign that Gary is really starting to wind down now towards the end of his career? And perhaps it is, we don't know. But the Grand Slam, that's an event that Gary Anderson has said for a long time it is one of his favourites, and him and James Wade, I think they were the only 2 ever presents before this weekend. So for him not to enter that qualifier, the last chance to get in from that aspect, it is surprising. So are we looking at Gary Anderson's last 2 tournaments being Minehead and Ali Pally, then he sails off into the sunset? I don't think he's one that's going to make a big deal about retiring. He just likes to play darts, as he said before. But I think if he does carry on into next year, missing the Grand Slam, that is a missed opportunity to cash in, have a deep run, because when we get to the World Championship, he is going to be defending that runner-up money and an early exit. He could be dropping out towards the top 20 come the end of the year. So, if you're a Gary Anderson fan, I think you're probably the most disappointed, because you do wonder, what does this mean for his future? And for the other 3 we spoke about, they're all going to be watching on next week, disappointed to miss out, but I guess itching to get to Minehead, make a deep run before we get to the big one at Ali Pally.
Yeah, I think you can make a case for all the 4, and you made the case for Jose, you made the case for Gary. Well, I guess you made the case against Gary. I'll do the opposite. I'll make the case against Jose and the case for Gary, because yes, you're right. Jose de Sousa is looking like he's going to move outside the top 16 or pretty close there too. But at the end of the day, for much of this year and much of last year, he wasn't playing at the level of the world number 6. He was playing at times outside the level of the top 32 in the world. And that showed up early in the year when he could not win a match. But over the last few months, he's really started to come back into form. And yes, having the money drop off his ranking is going to be a big drop to his ranking, but it means that that pressure is no longer going to be there of defending the ranking. And if you look at just how his results since the World Match Play, you mentioned the quarterfinal at the World Match Play, but in all the Pro Tour events, including Euro Tour since then, he's 9th in money earned since the World Match Play, nearly £30,000, right behind Luke Humphries, who's number 1 on the Pro Tour Order of Merit this year. So he's been almost as good over the last few months as the Pro Tour number 1, and only 8 players total are ahead of him. He's ahead of Goran Price. Granted, Goran pulled out of a couple Euro Tours. He's ahead of Dirk van Dijvenbode. He's ahead of people like James Wade and Gary Anderson and Dimitri Vandenberg in terms of that money won over the last few months in the Pro Tour events. That's, I think, the more important thing for maintaining his ranking, because if he's outside the top 16, he's going to need to be doing well on the Pro Tour. And that's how he built up originally. He built up by playing well in the Players' Championships and eventually playing well in the Euro Tour events. And that set the stage for his major breakthrough. He's now playing well on the floor events again. And yes, missing out on a televised tournament, especially when you're defending six figures, is big, but I don't think it's the end of the world for him, because he knows he's playing well and he knows now that's off and he can just start building again. As far as Gary Anderson, we don't know. There is that sign that maybe he is starting to wind down. But if he is starting to wind down, why did he go and play all the Pro Tours over the last few months? I mean, you could say, all right, maybe it's to make sure that he's match sharp for the Players' Championship final, and more importantly for the World Championship, because he doesn't play the Euro Tours. He doesn't play other things. But that doesn't seem like something he would do if he's not still trying to build his ranking. Because as things stand, as you mentioned, he's outside the top 20 at the beginning of next year. And he's outside the spots for the World Match Play. Not by much, but by a little bit, which means if he's not in the top 16, he's going to have to get back into that top 16 other spots through the Pro Tour. And he is just the 2,250 pounds behind Ryan Meikle right now for the last match play spot. But playing those Players' Championship events, keeping that money going into the bank account, especially since he doesn't play the Euro Tours, is vital. And it seems like he's still doing that. Missing out on the Grand Slam, though, is a missed opportunity for him to try to climb back. We'll try to stay in the top 16 at the end of the year. Yes, he could have a deep run at Worlds. Yes, he could have a deep run in the Players' Championship final and still be in the top 16. Maybe he'll do well at the UK Open next year. But playing the qualifier could have given him that chance to get another televised tournament in, and it would only been an extra day. And I'm not sure why he didn't do it. You could be right, but then I just don't understand why he's playing the Players' Championship events if he is winding down. As far as Dimitri goes, as far as Wade goes, especially for Wade, missing out is new for him, but he won the event on the Saturday for his first title in a year and a half. He's going to have confidence going into the back end of the year, although his interview didn't seem to say that. But he managed to win that title. That takes some of the sting off, because 12,000 pounds, well, that's basically getting last 16 money here. Dimitri Vandenberg, yes, you mentioned he was unfortunate not to be there because he won those two World Series events. But again, his focus is on the World Championships at the back end of the year, staying in the top 16. As things stand, he's still fairly comfortable in the top 16 at the end of the year. And yeah, the missed opportunity, but he has bigger fish to fry. His goal is to become world champion. I think you can make a case for all four. You can make the case against all four. And obviously, they'd all rather be here than not, but they're not here. And for all of them, it's now getting ready for the Players' Championship final, getting ready for Worlds, and making sure that you're at your best when it matters the most.